Tim Smith, thank you so much for being my guest here today on Talking the Talk.
Yeah, man. It's good to be here. It's good to be anywhere.
You're a fellow Atlantean, man. Or an Atlean, I guess they call us, you know. So,
yeah.
How are you holding up over across town with the whole COVID thing? Are you doing the shelter in place and being safe?
Pretty much, yeah. You know, I was telling my wife it's not too different from my normal life. I'm kind of always at home anyway. So, you know, other than going to the grocery store and stuff and trying to get there early enough to beat the crowds and just, you know, wearing the crazy little mask that I made and stuff, it's been fine. And we've, you know, just been playing games around the house, things we normally wouldn't necessarily do, but it's been cool to reconnect with our family and just have some time together. It's been all right.
Yeah, my life hasn't changed much either. I spend almost all my time in my basement, just, you know, listening to music, playing music, talking to friends and musicians. And so it's not a whole lot different, except for I can't go out for Chinese food. So
right.
Kind of a bummer.
Right.
So
yeah, I get you.
Well, I am so excited about the whole Licorice Quartet album or EP that just came out. And obviously, you know, I'm a longtime Jellyfish fan, so this has really been a huge thing for us. How have you seen it received so far by Jellyfish fans alike?
You know, I think it's gone down fairly well. I don't look at every Jellyfish fan page and stuff, and I know of a bunch of them. I think, you know, we hope people that were fans of Jellyfish will get this. It's clearly not Jellyfish because Andy Sturmer's not involved, and you know, Roger and Eric and I have once everybody starts to hear all the different EPs, you'll see there's a lot more stylistically maybe going on than what Jellyfish sort of focused on for those two records that we did, or I did one of them with them. But you know, I'm glad that everybody's still wanting to listen to it. I think I'm only saying that because I don't want people to get the impression that we were trying to continue Jellyfish. I think it was more of how long it's been, 20 odd years later, that we were all able to get back together, the three of us, just with a sort of common denominator of sort of the same record collections and same strategy for what we like to do musically and how to get together and do that. And we found a way to do it, even though I live in Atlanta and the other two are in LA. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we didn't really start with an agenda of like, let's recreate what Jellyfish was about. And I think the songs that we were writing together some of them were bits and pieces from years ago, but, you know, we tried to keep somewhat of a contemporary eye on what we're all into at the moment. So hopefully it people that like Jellyfish will like this, but they can also kind of grow with us as well.
As being a Jellyfish fan for so long, like the last thing that I wanted was a recreation of Jellyfish. The music it's familiar, but yet it's surprisingly new. Those harmonies are still there, like the things that I loved about Jellyfish are in there, but it isn't Jellyfish. It's your own thing. I had to commend you on that. Was that because you think you guys had similar influences? You were able to bring that back after so long?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we Roger and I started talking about this in 2017. I just sort of finished playing with Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, and he had a break with playing with Beck. Mm-hmm. And then we sort of reached out to Eric after that. And I think we just, because we'd worked together on some of my Umajet stuff in the past. Both Roger and Eric had played on them, and Roger called me and said, hey, man, one of those songs that we worked on came up on my iPod, and I just started, or on his phone, whatever. And and he just said, I just started thinking about it, and I really missed the style of music that we were all sort of into. And, you know, it was just a conversation, and then I'd go out to Los Angeles, and we'd kind of play some ideas for each other, and it just started to bloom. And I think it's kind of like you said, like we all have the same record collections, and it wasn't so much of like trying to say things like, oh, let's make a Bowie record. It was more like somebody would play something and I would play it in a style, and somebody would say, oh, that reminds me of Black Country Rock. Mm-hmm. And everybody knew what that meant, you know, even though it was just an acoustic guitar, a 12-string guitar that was not even on Black Country Rock. But you know what I mean? Like, we just have the same sensibility of what things mean, because we've all, probably like you, sit and listen to music so much that it just kind of becomes your building blocks for your own creation. And because we were able to speak that way, it was pretty quick and easy to kind of get back into it, to create these songs.
I would imagine that three of you guys being together in the same band for so long, obviously things are going to rub off on each other and there's going to be somewhat of a creative connection. What's really special about this EP is that you all really got to create. And I loved being able to hear the distinct differences, but yet, actually subtle differences, but yet similarities of all the material, which I thought really showed exactly what you said. Like, you guys shared the same record collection pretty much, but you kind of approached it in different ways. So what are the different ways that you feel like the three of you guys approached writing to kind of bring it together the way it turned out?
I would say the overriding arc to everything is what's going to serve the song best. Mm-hmm. Was always where we started. So, Roger's a pretty well-known session musician in Los Angeles, and he plays on a lot of different people's records, and I've done a fair amount of that too, and Eric has as well. So we just use the strengths of what we've had to use to be playing with other musicians, which is you've got to have this arsenal of ability and, skills and instruments and understanding things and sensibilities to what works best. So all of that to say, a lot of our song ideas were very different, and I thought it was just super refreshing that Roger could say, "Oh my gosh, this is more like Roxy Music. Let me put that hat on," but not later Roxy Music, but earlier, like Brian Eno type stuff.
Right.
And so, it just gave us a freedom to explore everything. It could be some sort of Thomas Dolby-esque sounds for synthesizers on some songs or whatever. Mm-hmm. And because we just want to make the best and most intriguing and compelling songs that we can. We didn't really worry about, there's got to be one lead singer or there's got to be this or that, because these days we just want to be as creative as we can. And that template, though, has always been what's the best thing for the song. So then you're free to kind of use whatever tools in your toolbox that you have, mm-hmm. which is what we tried to do.
Yes, and again, like I said, what I loved so much about hearing the album is that there's such a good flow to the songs, too. But yet, like I said, they all kind of stand on their own, but yet work together. And I loved that, because that to me is where it's obvious that there was more than just two hands in the pot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we had some time to kind of develop all the songs too. We weren't really under any kind of deadline, mm-hmm. so certain things kind of rose to the top, and we've, because we have two other EPs in the can that we're going to release later, they're sort of grouped in a specific way, mm-hmm. and as they all come out, it'll hopefully, and it was sort of done on purpose, I think. The one thing that we still maintain is that the music that we create and the time that we put into it, especially in recreating vocals and stuff, it's just an arduous process, and mm-hmm. not a lot of people, A, know how to do that, B, take the time to do it, or they're C, just not very good at singing the way that you have to create the type of things that Roger arranges. So, it's meticulous and it takes time, and it requires listeners sometimes that get it to take the time to sit down and listen to it. I mean, when we released Lighthouse Spaceship, knowing that it's a 6.5 minute song, that's daunting to a lot of listeners and mm-hmm. these days. And we just didn't really care. It's funny, when we first started working on it, it's like somebody said, this is 6.5 minutes long, and we hadn't even thought about it that way. So, we're just doing it for ourselves and the love of what we like. So hopefully people like it.
I thought the other cool thing about Lighthouse Spaceship was I was like, oh, look at this. It's a great pop song, but it kind of breaks the pop song rule of like 3.5 minutes, so I loved that it was this, it's hard to say like epic pop song, you know what I mean? But it really is. It's like an epic pop rock song.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there was some talk about, we could, fade it at the end of the first half or whatever, but, we're not in an era where being on the radio means as much anymore.
Right.
And, it allows people to go to a different place. And that's sort of one of the other things that we all believed in as listeners and as fans of music so much, was that why do you have to try and pigeonhole yourself into a box that says it has to be 3.5 minutes long? So
I love what you said about not having to cater to radio or some sort of a commercial outlet to play the songs, is that if you're feeling it and it's good, why cut it off? In the same way that why extend it if it feels like it's good to just cut it? I love that you guys went in with that mentality. Now, when you guys went into the studio, it had to have been kind of like a family reunion kind of thing, because you were all together in the studio again, working on this new material. Like, was it hard to get any work done at first? Like, were you just like reminiscing and catching up, or?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I would go out there, and when we were first just writing songs, I was staying with Eric, and we, have our writing sessions, and Roger would come over. But Roger's a pretty meticulous dude, so while we would go have a nice Thai meal every now and then and catch up with stuff, we were on a schedule because I had to go out there and work. But yeah, of course, there's a bunch of stories and catching up with things. And Roger's had a whole career playing on people's records. So I was like, so tell me more about playing on Morrissey's record, and what was that like? Or same with Eric, like him, he had just gotten back from Europe playing with another group called Lost Angels, which is made up of a bunch of different people in Los Angeles. Yeah, so there's all that stuff. And the fact that we're all older and have, I have kids, Roger doesn't have kids, or Eric, they don't have children, but, there's the stories of them seeing pictures of my son Kieran, who's 26 now, who was born when I was in Jellyfish. So,
and you make me feel
it's
old.
Sort of a family reunion.
But yeah, I mean, I can imagine that kind of electricity that kind of came through when you guys got together. And obviously, I'm sure this is going to get asked a lot, but is there a fear from you guys that there's going to be too much expectations of you being Jellyfish, basically?
I wouldn't say that it's fear as much as just, look, I was a fan of Jellyfish before I joined them. I remember seeing them in Atlanta opening for World Party in 1991 or 90 or whatever it was. And was blown away. And then their sound engineer, Shalom, had moved to Atlanta, and I'd become friends with him. And he was doing sound for a band I was working with at that time. And, I made that connection through him, and that's kind of how I got the gig. But the point is that it was clear that Andy was the lead singer, and I found out later that, Roger and he were the main writers. I love Jason Faulkner. I love Chris Manning. When I got to play with them, it was very clear to me that this was Andy's baby and Roger's baby, and that's all it ever was. I was never asked to be any more than that, and the fact that Roger's put out a few solo records and Andy's gone on to have a career in music production and writing music for TV and movies and stuff like that, we haven't kept in touch, and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Andy's happy in his life and stuff, and if he wanted to be more involved and more engaged, he had every opportunity to, but he just doesn't, and that's cool. Everybody, he's his own dude, and we wish him well. And there was never any thought of this trying, like, hey, should we get Jellyfish back together? That's never been discussed.
Right.
Whatever Roger's influence with Andy as their own personal stuff, I can't speak to, but I know that there's no, as far as I can tell, at least from Roger, there's no ill will, and of course, we want people to, and as a fan, I would go, man, it would be great if Andy and Roger could get back together and do something. I would love to hear what became of that, but that's not my place to say. And I certainly hope that fans of our music will understand that, we're not trying to recreate Jellyfish. We're only staying true to a sort of style of music that we've all been fans of together. So
I'm going to assume that there's plans to maybe take this on tour. Has there been talks about hitting the road with this and taking it
Not
to the
really.
fans?
I mean, it hasn't. That's just, we're older guys, and none of us are, I don't think any of us at this point want to get in a van and go and play clubs. That's just not in the works for us. I think, obviously, if our music were to get out to enough people where there was some interest and there was a viability way of us considering the way to do it, because we're sort of self-funding this, that might be a conversation, but that was never really in our wheelhouse. I think it would be fun, and we maybe could do some one-off things together in Los Angeles. We've talked about doing that, but even that's pretty involved, because we're not going to this music is not the kind of thing you just go, busk on a corner. So it takes some time to work it out and stuff. And we'd love to have Jeremy Stacey, who played drums on the thing, be a part of it, but he's based in the UK and still, as far as I know, still doing King Crimson pretty full on. And although he's reached out to us and said he'd love to play, but it requires a lot of energy that at the moment, and obviously with everything going on now, touring is just not on the books for anybody. But it's not off the books, but it would require some different things that aren't really happening at the moment.
Jeremy Stacey, the honorary fourth as far as the quartet goes.
Well, I guess you could say that. Yeah. I mean, the name is from a 70s movie that Roger was always a fan of.
Yes.
So, and he brought it up to me as like, but there's only three of us. And he went, exactly. And I just went, okay, well, we're going down the old Thompson twins.
I was just going to say, wasn't it the Thompson twins?
Yeah. So, yeah. But we figured we could leave, the fourth person, it's sort of like a Holy Spirit maybe of drummers or whomever we need to get to fill in.
What I love about Jeremy is he's got this ability to wear so many different hats that no matter what he's playing, a listener can go, almost feels like, okay, that's the only style he plays. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like he's so focused on each specific style. Coming off of the heels of like something like King Crimson, where it's super technical and progressive and everything, was it hard to kind of like reel him in to do this, or is he just able to just drop everything and just do what he's focusing on right then and there?
Yeah, not at all. He is in my opinion, one of the greatest session drummers I've ever known. I mean, I've heard him play on pretty much any style of music, and going from funk and R&B stuff to punk and new wave and jazz, like full on straight up jazz and stuff. He can do anything, and he's probably the biggest lover of music I've ever met. Mm-hmm. And when I first met him, I'd go to his studio in London, and he was just sort of living in the studio, literally sleeping under his mixing console, and we would just sit there and listen to like Buddy Rich records and stuff. And it's like, that's cool for a while, but it's like 5 hours into it, and I just like, dude, I'm not this deep. I can't hang with someone listening to drummers, but he's got that kind of a passion for music that, and it wouldn't be all just jazz. It could be anything that's compelling, even classical music. He's taught me a lot about some things that I never would have really considered, and so he brings that to drumming, and I think his mindset with us was he was a fan of Jellyfish as well. We met him touring together back in '93. He was in an English band called the Lemon Trees that supported us. And so we kind of met through that and kept in touch, and then I ended up getting him an audition to play with me and Sheryl Crow's band, and we did that. That was a whole different world. We did that for a long time, and then we played in World Party for a minute, and then we both did the Finn Brothers, which was Neil and Tim Finn.
Yes, yeah.
And then we did, the Noel Gallagher's thing. So he wore a lot of different hats in that. And in the meantime, he's always been playing on different people's records that were big #1 hits in the UK and stuff, and then doing his jazz stuff too. So he's a badass.
I remember the first time a friend of mine from Durham came down to Atlanta and took me to see Crimson for the first time because I'd never seen him. And we were sitting there and he was telling me all about the drummers, and he's like, oh, Jeremy Stacey. I'm like, Jeremy Stacey? Like Chris Robinson's drummer, like Noel Gallagher? And he's like, I have no idea who else he played with. I was like, dude, he played with Chris Robinson, Noel Gallagher. Like I said, he's played with like Sheryl Crow. And he goes, Sheryl Crow? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I said, I'm curious to see how he does with this, And so it was just amazing to see somebody with so many, facets, just kind of be like, wow, you're a fucking badass drummer, man,
I don't think. I mean, he takes music as a challenge. If there's something that he doesn't understand, and to this day, he'll go to New York on his time off, and go to the 55 bar, whatever, the sort of jazz club that all the dudes that played on Bowie's last record, they all play there. And he'll literally like hang out with a drummer that he likes for a week and almost take lessons from him. And these are guys that are younger than him that, have technique that he just he wants to master it all the time. And I've never seen a guy that's at his age and at his success that's still willing to learn and frankly doesn't consider himself in the class that I put him in. And he's humble in that regard.
Talking about you a little bit more, is that, like, at what point do you kind of look at someone like Jeremy and go, okay, I'm not done learning? Like from playing with Sheryl Crow to Noel Gallagher and things like that. Did you learn some things along the way that you didn't know before that you've been able to apply to this new project?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a huge, I've said this a bunch, and I don't mean it disparagingly, but I wasn't a huge Sheryl Crow fan when I was auditioning for her. I found her first album, I heard All I Want to Do Is Have Some Fun, and it just drove me crazy because it was on the radio all the time. But I did learn a lot from her, and mostly about how to simplify things. I think coming out of Jellyfish as a guitar player, a bass player, and playing her music, it taught me a little bit more. And same with Noel Gallagher. You know, his songs are so infectious in some ways. I had no idea that he was still as popular, especially around the world, not so much in America, and he's written some pretty big songs, and they're very standard. You know, I like to call it cowboy chords, just first position kind of chords, and he just kind of moves the capo around to get different keys and stuff, but he's playing basically the same sorts of shapes, and
right.
It's like, can't deny it, still a good melody, because he would say people give him crap about that and say, you know, it's like a Beatles thing or whatever, and he goes, all right, well, you try it. You try and write a song like he has. And, you know, kind of give it to him for that. That's cool. So, yeah, I learned a lot. I try to learn from everything I've ever been a part of. The interesting thing for me was I didn't start out as a bass player or anything. I was always a guitar player, and I ended up getting gigs as a bass player.
Right.
Because those were the things that came along. So, you know, I think I've never quite had the pocket that people that just focus on bass do. So that's always something that I'm trying to work on. But I still like having a little bit of struggle in whatever I do. So I'm not as much of a technical learner as somebody like Jeremy, because I think the drum chair is a little bit different. You can't sort of struggle to find where the groove is or the tempo or whatever. The one guy in the band that really has to have his stuff together is the drummer. So it's a little different for me in that regard with Jeremy, but I still like being able to just hear the struggle in what I'm trying to do playing-wise.
See, that's cool, because it's like you said, it's the challenge of that struggle is something that kind of keeps it fresh and keeps it always interesting, instead of just absolutely bored to tears or whatever playing the same AC/DC bass line.
Yeah, and I think you know, Roger played some guitar on this record because he's a great, you know, if you want to have a Ramone/Buzzcocks guitar player, he's your guy. He can play like that. And that's not something that's as easy to do as some people would think it is. And you'll hear on some of the stuff that comes out later that it's deceptively difficult to recreate that. And, you know, so I learned a lot of that from Roger too. Even in making Spilt Milk with Roger and Andy, it was oftentimes them trying to tell a lot of really, really good guitar players what to play. And it almost got to the point where it's like, you just need to play this yourself, man. Oh, no, I'm not that good. Well, you're so meticulous about it that you should do it, because you've just told Lyle Workman and John Bryan 5 billion ways to get to where you're going, and it's just not happening until you just do it. So, you know, but that's a good thing. I think Roger, even in these recordings, he knows what he wants, and he can play off even a song that I brought in, and he can bring in a different sensibility to it that requires me to step up my game on a part that I wouldn't have naturally have thought of. And I think we trust each other enough to go down each other's paths, which has been cool.
I have the Jellyfish fan club box, you know, that came out years ago. And I was reading the liner notes in there one day, and there was a little quote from you that said, like, you can still get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom and hit your lyre out of do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like I can't even begin to imagine how just meticulous and how like intense those harmony practices were. Did all that work make it easier to do this time around with the Licorice Quartet?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously, knowing what's required. I remember, Eric and I were rooming together during the Spilt Milk sessions, and so we would wake up and have a cup of coffee and then be like, all right, let's find our pitches, because it was all singing group harmonies like that is all about knowing where you are relative to one another, and but also like you have to listen, but you can't at the same time. If you listen to the chord all the time, you forget where you are, you lose, you start to waver on your pitch. So it was like a boot camp in a lot of ways that made it easier for me to go on and do other things with other artists. I'd never done anything since then. It was required so much. And poor Eric at times was having to sing crazy notes like that, play a guitar, then also push a pedal and play 3 notes on a keyboard that, you know, it was like juggling plates. But so we knew there was going to be a little bit of that just because of the way Roger arranges vocals. And again, doing it is another story, because it's like, okay, Tim, or okay, Roger, go out and sing this one pitch 15,000 times, and then we're going to double it, and then we're going to triple it. And it just, you know, there's nothing fun. It's like punching the clock. You have to believe in the process and go out there and execute it. And it's not pretty, and it's not ego stroking, because you're just sitting there going, nope, 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 do it again, nope, 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 nope. And there's more no's than yeses, but once you get the yeses, there's a payoff to it. So it's just believing in that process.
I always tell people, because obviously I'm sure you guys heard this a million times, but whenever like a friend of mine or something, I turn on to Jellyfish or whatever, they go, yeah, did they really do this harmonies? I always send them the link to the Jools Holland session where you guys did Bye 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 and what was the other one you guys did?
All one, I think.
Yes, Ghost at Number One. And I was like, listen to that, and they were like, okay, yeah, damn, that's insane. So could you do your Lyre right now?
I'm afraid to do it because I might be in the wrong key. But no, I'm not going to do it right now. Sorry.
Man, I had my choice. I had my chance. This was the big payoff for me. But you know what?
There's other music in the other room, but you know, that stuff was just, we had to sing it every day. And I remember we were touring with Tears for Fears at the time, and those guys would just be like walking by the dressing room going, man, I can't believe they're doing it again. But that's really the only way you can really pull it off, is you have to learn how to sing as a group. And it was all not as much even just the pitches, but like dynamically and shaping vowels together and stuff. And that was Shalom, who was our live sound engineer, was also a singer, sort of trained growing up a bit, I believe. But he would also work with us because he was out front and go, Tim, your R's are not as round as the other guys and stuff. So it was always something going on that we were aware of, that, you know. And so all that to say too, with this group, it was just me and Roger and Eric. We had to find our own blend, and it took a little time to find that. Obviously, Eric is such a badass singer; he could probably sing all the parts. But we had to try and make some arrangement decisions based on what we had to work with. And I think for the most part, it worked out. There were some things where we double up. Eric might double up more where I'd wanted to be in a certain range, but I just couldn't sing that high or whatever. But there's some tricks of the trade, some of the Roy Thomas Baker things that they would do that we employed that helped thicken things up and stuff. So,
thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this, and it's a pleasure to finally talk to you. And you know, I'm like I said, I'm a big fan of the Licorice Quartet stuff. I think it's fantastic, and I'm already looking forward to the next releases. So, thank you for so much great music, and thank you for being so cool to talk to.
Sure, man. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, cool. Well, look, take care and be safe and shelter in place and all that good stuff. And hopefully we'll run into each other.
Yep. I'll see you around town.
All right. Thanks, Tim.